Hello, YouTube. Sorry, I started making a video before, but then the internet kind of cut out, so now I'm going to review this. This isn't professionally done. I didn't rehearse this, so this is kind of going to be like a one shot. I mean, it's not going to be very long. So, if you've been paying attention the last week or so, we've had protesting and riots and general civil unrest over the death of George Floyd last Monday when he was more or less murdered by Minneapolis PD. Officer Derek Chauvin, I believe, and then along with three other police officers who were there. He was videotaped saying that he couldn't breathe as Officer Chauvin had his knee on his neck, and he later expired. There was autopsies and conflicting reports over what happened, so that's being fought out in court. The other three officers, along with Officer Chauvin, were arrested and are, I believe, are awaiting trial now, or they will be awaiting trial as this kind of goes. And now this has led to the larger debate of police brutality, and there's been just general civil unrest in the country for the last week. We are now under curfew. There's curfews across the city. Here, there's curfews throughout all the states, and now you have several groups. You have the Black Lives Matter people who've come out. You have people who are coming out in support of them, people who are coming out in refuting to them. So this has kind of grabbed the national attention, and this comes after months of isolation because of COVID. And I came on to make this video to ask a general question, and my question is, what is the exact end game with all the protesting and the riots and everything? What do all these protesters want exactly? Now, there's been several answers that have been given. They want police reform. They want police disarmament. They want justice for Mr. Floyd. That's fine. But what steps are they going to take to kind of do that? It's all great. Look, I'm supporting the protesters. I do believe that those police were in the wrong and that this should be addressed. But here's my issue now. How are we going to get police reform exactly? What are the steps that we're going to take? It's fine to meet together and chant and protest and do sit-ins and kneel-ins and trade hugs with the police and trade hugs with each other and hold up the signs and the hashtag Black Lives Matter. That's all fine. But what are the practical steps that we're going to take to make sure that something like this is addressed for real? This isn't the first time that we've had Black Lives Matter and protesting over the death of a black man. There was, what was it? There was the Freddie Gray murder. There was there's been there's been so many that I can't name them all. And each time the national attention is being garnered for this, we chant, we fight, we riot, and nothing changes. So how are we going to make sure that this sort of thing is addressed and doesn't happen again? What practical steps are we going to take as a country? And even all these protesters, what are they going to do? Right now, there's a lot of emotion, but I'm not seeing any sort of practical steps to make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen again. We're chanting, we're meeting in the streets, we're doing all that, we're showing solidarity, and that's great, don't get me wrong. But what's the next step? Now, a lot of people have been referencing the civil rights marches of the 1960s under Martin Luther King Jr. and all the other black advocates and stuff during that time. But see, here was the difference. They didn't just march, they didn't just do sit-ins and things like that. Martin Luther King Jr. was in contact with government officials, with state officials. He was taking those steps to garner public sympathy for this. And that's the difference, is that the people who are marching and protesting, I don't see them taking the practical steps. So what is the exact end game? What practical steps are we going to take to do this? I'm not going to get too political with this because I don't want to right now. I just want to ask this question: is what are we going to do to change this, especially because public sympathy has kind of been lost with all the rioting. I feel like the message has gotten lost with the rioting and the chaos and the general just destruction that's been happening. The problem is we as Americans have short attention spans. A month ago it was COVID. Now it's the Black Lives Matter / rioting / justice for Mr. Floyd. What is it going to be tomorrow? What's going to happen when all this furor dies down and everything kind of bleeds away? Is this going to bleed into nothing? Is this going to continue to be refreshed so that's still in the national public attention? What are we going to do exactly? We can argue every which way about blacks are discriminated against, whites are discriminated against, Mexicans, take your pick. We've all been discriminated against, and that's kind of what makes us unique. You know, we're all human, we're all equal. And so how exactly do we take steps? If you've got answers, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm okay with that. If you think I'm wrong, you can tell me that too. But what are the practical steps? Are these protesters going to meet with city officials, with the governor of Minnesota? Are they going to meet with the mayor of the city? Are they going to request an audience with Congress? Are they going to request an audience with the president? Are they going to take the next steps, or is this just more kind of solidarity with no teeth? I don't want to call it armchair activism, but this is what it's going to turn into if protesters don't start meeting with people who can make that difference, or even signing petitions or making things. Great, chant, hold up your signs, hold hands, give hugs, all that's great, but unless we take the practical steps, this is going to be an ongoing problem in the United States. Take a lesson from Martin Luther King Jr. and from the activists from the 1960s. They met, like I said, they met with government officials. They met with local city officials to slowly begin changing the laws, to get rid of the Jim Crow laws, to get equal treatment under the law, to get rid of the colored fountains and the white only fountains and the white sitting in the back of the bus, and all those issues which were just as important then as they are now, apparently. But if you're going to quote the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., then you need to follow the example that him and his activists made. This is all going to bleed away if you don't take those practical steps. So, like I said, what is the exact end game? What do they want? How are they going to clearly define their goals? And America, let's stop dividing ourselves by race. We're all humans. We're all Americans. We should start acting like it. I don't want us to be concentrating on just race. We as a country are so much better than that. We've accomplished so much together. Blacks, whites, Hispanics, Indians, everything. We're all one nation, or at least we're supposed to be. So let's stop with the divisions. Let's come together and form real solutions to our problems. Instead of pointing the finger and blaming, defund the police, de-arm the police. That's not going to solve anything. We need the police to protect us, unless we're going to start protecting ourselves, or there's going to be national carrying allowed across all 50 states. We can't afford to de-arm the police. The police are still here for our protection. And remember, not all police are bad, just like not all blacks are criminals and not all whites are racists. To make those generalizations is just going to further the divide that we're already finding ourselves in. Let's examine ourselves. Let's not point to Congress. Let's not point to Congress and say it's their fault. Let's not point at the president and say it's his fault. We can point at the people who killed Mr. Floyd and say, yeah, it's their fault. But once again, after all the trials are happened and after all that, if we didn't take those practical steps, we're never going to get anywhere as a country. Look, we fought a war to end slavery in this country, and it took years. It took us almost 100 years to get to that point. It took us another 100 years to get to the civil rights movement. And so unless we're willing to put that work in to fundamentally change the United States where we all are equal, and we're not willing to take those practical steps, we're not going to change anything. So let's start coming up with solutions instead of pointing the fingers and playing the blame game. The blame game doesn't suit anybody and it doesn't help anybody. So yeah, if you've got suggestions, you can leave them in the comments. Other people can take it. If you're somebody who's been a protester and you happen to watch this is a public video, hey, great. Thank you. Let's start coming up with the practical solutions. Call your local officials, tell them what you want to change. Call President Trump, see if he'll see if he can do something. Petition Congress, call your governors, whatever. If you want a real change, then you need to make the change happen. Screaming justice for George and chanting and waving signs around isn't going to fix the problem. Got to take those practical steps. So let's take those practical steps together as a country, and let's stop pointing the finger and using divisional racism to divide us. If there's racism, let's all address it together. Look, it's like the COVID thing. We're all in this together. Well, guess what? Protesters, you've got the national attention. Those of you who are protesting, right? Those of you who are looting, you need to stop because you're just drowning out the message, and that's wrong, and you need to stop that. Looting is not okay. Let's work together. Thank you for watching. You can subscribe. I might make more videos as time goes on. This is kind of my test, so leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe if you want. Tell me I'm full of baloney. I don't care. So you all have a wonderful day. God bless you, and God bless America.